Man, I am on a roll today. 2 chapters in one day? What is this? It must be my birthday! No, that was like a month ago. Good mood. People yelling at me to record? Oh, man. One of my friends saying that I should record more because I'm a lazy bitch. Yeah, that sounds about right. Time for the next chapter of Garden of Chaos. This one is called Suck It Up, Dashie! I'm kind of afraid for this one! You know, it's Rainbow Dash. Presumably. This is the second to last chapter. So, you know. Get hype. I'm just gonna start reading now. The maze was once again eerily quiet, but it never seemed to bother the sky blue Pegasus, who waited just around the corner. Yeah, that's alright. She peered her head out briefly to find a series of passages like the rest of the path she'd been following. I can't fucking speak today. Assuring herself that she just needed to find her element, she put on a look of determination as she lunged forward and galloped to the other side of the hall. When she arrived at another wall, she peered farther down another hall and found something interesting. It looked very familiar, as it should. It was a floating cloud that was occasionally shooting out small bolts of multicolored lightning. Yup, that sounds very familiar. Looking suitably confused for a moment, Rainbow Dash then quickly realized that it must be what she was searching for. Her element of harmony, loyalty, must be a representation of her cutie mark. I've got you now, element. I don't know what kind of voice to give Rainbow Dash. I'm just gonna kind of fucking try my best. Please, just bear with me. With that same staunch determination, she followed the clouds and began to speed up and turn through the maze. She wasn't going to let it get away, though. The Pegasus was still quick on her hooves, regardless of her missing wings. She turned corners left and right like the competitive racer she was and chased down the cloud with hopes to get in with whose reach. I can't fucking speak. When she turned past the final wall and charged forward, she found a completely unexpected sight on the other side. Discord, which accomplished taking away her wings and forced her to run through a hedge maze, was lying atop what appeared to be a cloud hammock and happened to be wearing cheesy sunglasses. Gotta say, that does sound pretty goddamn comfortable. He heard her approach and briefly stretched before he let out a yawn as he spoke to her with a very playful tone. I can see why you like these clouds so much. Very plush. He gave the cloud underneath him a pat, demonstrating its softness to the Pegasus. She did not take his attitude well and began to angrily challenge him with her tough demeanor. Get off there and put him up! That sounds like a very bad idea. Fisticuffs with the Lord of Chaos, just, you know, maybe it's just me, and, you know, it very might well be just me, but that sounds like challenging Mike Tyson to a boxing match when he was in his prime. Something you don't do. She added more in an effort to get him to rise from his position and fight as if they were equals. Unfortunately for Rainbow Dash, she was dealing with a far more manipulative being than she could have ever imagined. He rose from his seat and took off the sunglasses that covered a devilish gleam in his eye. Hey, I'm not such a bad guy. In fact, if you want to fight me, you really should be in top form, don't you think? With a snap of his fingers, a nearby cloud returned to Rainbow Dash and hovered over her for a brief moment. Looking genuinely befuddled, she fell back onto all fours as she looked up, expecting the cloud to endow her with her element. Or something. It zapped her, she quickly closed her eyes, wincing as if expecting a flash of pain. But there was no pain. Instead, she looked back and her precious wings were right back where they belonged. She was tempted to start kissing them, considering how much she had already begun to miss flying, but stopped herself as it would have been particularly embarrassing. Yeah. She stretched them outward and gave a brief flap to make sure they were genuine, and they were. Shocked by Discord's sudden offer to give her back that which he had enforced as prohibited earlier on, Rainbow Dash looked back to the villain and questioned him. I don't get it. Why give me my wings back if you know I can just fly out of here? Discord giggled internally as he found it cute that the Pegasus wasn't as gullible as she appeared to be. None of it would matter soon, but still, he was pleased as punched at her reaction. Within a split second, Discord lunged forward and brought himself right up next to Rainbow Dash's body and began to speak directly to her in a manner that some might assume was rather intimate. Oh, no particular reason. It's the least I can offer you before I let you challenge me. Discord sneaked over to her other side, keeping his wings folded so his long body could travel around, over and under her until he reached the other side. Just listen to my riddle once, and you're free to go. Rainbow Dash couldn't believe him for a second, but still decided to oblige him for at least giving her wings back. If she couldn't solve his riddle, she at least had an escape plan ready to go. Discord slithered back in front of her to a full standing position, but with his height, he appeared to be looming over her dramatically and casting a large shadow as he spoke. I put forth to you a tricky conundrum, one that would shadow your occasional doldrums. You can keep your wings if you can resist, eyes like mine, and continue to persist. Wait, what are you... The Sky Blue Plexus stared forward with a slight twitch in her eyes. The looming Draconicus' eyes started to swirl and rhythmically pulse different colors. She found herself unable to move, even after all the time stormed through the garden on foot, and after finally having her glorious wings back, she couldn't move. Those eyes drew her attention and were slowly chipping away at her urge to look somewhere else. Rainbow Dash couldn't tell what was happening and suddenly felt the need to look closer. She took a brief step forward, leaning her head in while her mouth lazily hung open. What are you staring at, Rainbow Dash? Your eyes. She spoke dreamily as she stepped closer. She was already ensnared. All that was left was to lead her to her inevitable downfall. He spoke once more as their faces met, eyes less than an inch apart as hers began to reflect the same colors as his. Yes, they are impressive, aren't they? But I know where your real interest lies. Rainbow Dash said nothing, and almost incapable of doing anything but answering his questions as she gave a slight nod. Discord backed away and lifted his feet from the ground, floating in the air and revealing his long body to the entranced Pegasus. Instinctively, her eyes darted straight for his spotted flesh, akin to a stallion's with all the right features for a mare in need. She didn't look away. The heart of all your desires, right? A thick, juicy cock, just perfect to slide right into that big mouth of yours. The mare didn't blink and only stared harder as she tried to process what was said. She gulped and brought a hoof up to gently tears her somewhat dry lips. Never once had the concept of fellatio crossed her mind, but now it was sounding very pleasant to a hypnotized brain. My mouth? Of course, your mouth waters just thinking about sucking it. It's your favorite thing to do, after all. Flying simply can't compare to the joy you feel when your mouth is nice and full. Yeah, I can He was right. She felt herself salivate as she stared at the enormous tool of his only a few feet away. Her mouth felt empty, and she needed to fill it right away. She brought herself even closer to the relaxed body in front of her. She only stepped when she could feel her heat emanating from his hotness as she breathed heavily, foolishly attempting to control her newfound desire. Not gonna work, is it? It's just not gonna fucking work. Discord spoke again, teasing her as he lowered his waist, a little positioning it just under her chin. Her eyes followed it without missing a beat. Fucking am stretching. God damn it. Go ahead, enjoy yourself. I won't tell anyone. You know, except for the internet and everybody listening to this and everybody who's read this story, which is a lot of people. But other than that, nobody. Rainbow Dash didn't have to be told twice. Her body felt hesitant as she sank to her haunches, but her mouth was far more eager. Oh, my. Her lips wrapped around the shaft and she began to take him into her mouth gently. Somewhere in her mind, she knew that this was unfamiliar and wrong, but as her tongue coated his underside in saliva, she felt the truth of his words sink in. She was enjoying this. Her head drew back slightly before lowering itself back down, trying to accommodate Discord's size as best as she could. He wasn't particularly entertained by her performance, instead choosing to insult her while she closed her eyes for a brief moment. I know you can do better than that, my dear. You're not satisfied with yourself unless you take it deep down your throat. Her eyes opened, half-lit in a dazed look as she stared forward at the base of his shaft. Taking in every syllable as truth, she knew she had to have more. With what appeared to be practiced guilt, Rainbow Dash lowered her head even farther and began to feel a thickness travel down her throat. Rainbow Dash soon moaned in pleasure from the sensation of having her mouth truly filled. Once she knew she had the entirety of him in her warm mouth, she sucked and licked along his length. Discord snickered silently to himself, knowing she was falling so quickly and easily, just like the others had. Yeah. Oh, what an eager little thing you are. If you wanted to come, all you had to do was ask. With that, Rainbow Dash felt two clawed hands on the sides of her head to hold her there. The cock she had been lovingly attending was now twitching and pulsing, as if something were to explode right out of it. And her assumptions were right, as a healthy load of cum travelled down her throat within seconds. The hot, sticky stream spurted a few times, but was nevertheless quite a large amount for Rainbow Dash to take. With her hands on her head, however, she had no choice but to swallow the fluid as it blasted its way into her. After making sure that she didn't miss any, Discord released her and allowed her to plop off his impressive member to get a chance to breathe. Her eyes no longer matched the hypnotic swirls of Discord's, and she appeared to be coming to her senses. Weakly, she rose from the ground and spoke with less of a dazed voice. What? What's the big idea?
I don't know what's going on, man. It's just fucking...
Discord feared that a moment like this would arrive, but knew he had the upper hand so long as he could still put her under his hypnotic spell. With a single paw, well, he only has one paw, so... He reached forward and grabbed her tiny chin, pinching her cheeks and forcing her to look back towards his eyes. Don't you remember, Rainbow Dash? Or has it been that long since you've been properly fed? Fed? Her voice cracked as her eyes once again fell for the Draconicus. This is a trick, goddammit. Her mouth went slack after she had questioned him once more, and she ended up staring at those magnificent eyes of his. Discord elaborated, but as he did so, he brought her head right back in front of his unyielding erection. That delicious cum is what you live for, my dear. Oh, how you tried to distract yourself from it for so long, but you knew that once you had a taste again, you could never have enough. Delicious cum. Her hooves gripped the base of him of her own accord, before her tongue lazily went to work circling the flared tip. She hardly had the strength to argue through her building, irresistible urge to suck. That's right, that thick stream of your roars sliding around in your mouth so you can really get a taste for it before swallowing it all. You will do anything for it, won't you, Rainbow Dash?
So I guess this is what you do when you're bored and trapped in stone. You think of this shit. Yeah, sure.
Rainbow Dash had already started sucking down a few inches of him and only moaned in response. The vibrations caused even Discord himself to shiver as he felt the Pegasus worship the cock in her mouth. That's kinda creepy. She was right where he wanted her, but he had to drive the nail deeper into her coffin. That sounds painful in a way. His hand began to gently tease her ear and run along her short mane, praising her efforts as she sucked harder and harder, growing desperate for the next release. That's a good girl. Good girls swallow every drop and love the taste. Are you a good girl, Rainbow Dash? Discord wasn't expecting much of an answer, but a simple nod from his victim ensured that she was already easily manipulated.
He was always proud of his work, but it was nice when he got the chance to reflect like this.
Oh, that funny to me. The God of Chaos watched as this once strong-willed and headstrong pony submissively attempted to coax what he wanted out of him, without so much as a peep of disrespect or an uncooperative attitude.
In fact, Discord felt the need to reward her efforts even more, but didn't reach for her head to hold her in place. This time, without giving her a single word of warning, he released another torrent of seed with relative ease and a contented sigh. Rainbow Dash, already too far resigned to her no motivation for sucking, simply held still as she felt his load shoot out of him and into her ever-hungry mouth. Her hooves held in position between his thighs, with her mouth just over the tip of the twitching member as it oozed the addictive substance right onto her tongue. The taste, in reality, wasn't all too pleasant, but Discord had her believing that it was the tastiest treat she could ever receive. The flavour of the gushing liquid was being perceived as pure ecstasy by the addicted mare. Rainbow Dash sucked tenderly, milking him to make sure that she wouldn't miss any of the sweet, thick nectar before pulling off the hard members seconds later. Discord looked down at her, and with a smirk he decided that he liked what he saw. Tiny droplets of cum could be seen on her lips briefly before her tongue snaked out and greedily licked it up. Finally, having received all that she could for the moment, Rainbow Dash smiled through her dazed facial expression and remarked up to the much taller figure. So tasty. Discord held back a short fit of giggles. He thought to himself about how proud he was of his little cocksucker, but he knew he'd have to wait. Yeah, hang on. She only needed one more tiny push before she was ready.
So, with the utmost focus, Discord cleared his throat as he spoke with the same allure that he had been leading Rainbow Dash on with this entire time. Yes, being fed that yummy cum feels so wonderful, doesn't it? It's just so wonderful that I'm sure you couldn't live without it. Rainbow Dash agreed with Discord as he made his points, but that final note struck a chord with her. She hadn't understood how she survived without being fed up to this point, but now she found herself desperate enough to beg for it. From now on, she couldn't wake up in the morning without a hot, thick bash just waiting for her to consume. How was she going to get by without fresh cum in her belly? Each and every day it'll get the craving, and you want it satisfied no matter what, right? Rainbow Dash looked as if she was in a desperate panic and agreed to what Discord was saying, even if she wasn't paying much attention as she should have. Honestly, that just kind of fits Rainbow Dash in general. Regardless, her mind fully accepted the new lifestyle he shaped for her, and that was exactly what the maniacal god wanted. So you will satisfy it. Find your lucky stallion and do exactly what you've done for me. If you can make them happy like I know you've made me, then they'll give you that load you so desire. Perhaps even more than one if you're lucky. Discord added a teasing tone to that last sentence, but the rest of it was a full command that was actively changing what the Sky Blue Pegasus wanted. She now needed more than just a tasty treat, she needed something to hold back her addiction. That's creepy. If she couldn't satisfy these cravings, she very well could have died. Okay, that's just what? She very well could have died. I've got nothing. Or at least that's what Discord wanted her to believe. Okay, that's better. And believe it she did, as she nodded her head up and down vigorously, eagerly accepting her fate before noticing something. The hard shaft in front of her was pulsing, and Rainbow Dash immediately knew what that meant. Her eyes lit up and her wings flared out in excitement as Discord spoke, belittling her yet again. Oh, quite the excited one, are we? Open wide. There was no hesitation. Rainbow Dash opened her mouth as wide as she could in front of him and shut her eyes tight when the first spurt fired into the air. Luckily for her, it was aimed just so that it would hit the inside of her mouth, as well as coat a bit of her face and mane. The sticky substance wasn't the ideal thing to be covered in, but as the release continued, the Pegasus could be heard moaning like wild. It shot onto her back, her neck, her back, her flared wings, and she loved the orgasmic height this brought her to. Every part of her shuddered under the shower of fluid that could very well have painted her white, and she couldn't give it a second thought. Taking time to recuperate, she swallowed and looked around her face, what she could manage, still finding it all very appealing to her taste buds. The texture on her fur was arousing her even further, and that became more evident as she moaned out. Her wings drooped a little, feeling it come slide down her feathers as it dripped along. Rainbow Dash's bright and vibrant colors began to fade away, much to Discord's joy. Her coat and mane, turning grey slightly faster than usual, was not hindered at all by her showing off her stained appearance. So good. I love it. I love cum. I have a feeling the person who actually requested this just wanted me to read this show, so I would have to say stuff like this. If that's the case, that's actually a really smart idea. Please don't do that. Perfect. Discord's target was completely changed, just how he liked her. He reached down and spoke a few words of encouragement as he stood back onto his own two legs. Well, then, I think you might want to find a couple of stallions and see if they'd be willing to feed you. At the same time. Maybe you'll feel full after that. Discord continued to laugh internally as Rainbow Dash silently nodded with the wildest smile he'd ever seen on her. She was fantasizing about it as soon as he brought the concept to her attention. She might savor one of them, taking her time to make sure she didn't miss an ounce of flavor. However, she also wanted to pound her face down on one, forcing the length deep down her throat and rotting her cute little face until he pumped out that sweet satisfaction for her. As fast as she could, Rainbow Dash took off in the opposite direction, leaving the maze and flying off toward Ponyville. In his reveling, he couldn't help but think to himself as he watched the element of loyalty disappear off into the sky. Too bad for her friends, she might be too busy sucking off a few dicks to be a reliable and loyal pony now. What a lovely little cum addict, that one. Yeah, I've just got nothing, honestly. What can I say about this? I can say that I'm glad my family members won't be able to hear this. I can say that... That's actually all I can say, really. Because I'm posting this on the internet for the public. This is gonna bite me in the ass later on in life. And I love it. Anyways, that has been Suck It Up, Dashie. Next, we have the final chapter of the Garden of Chaos. Love your master. It is the only other chapter tagged dark. In other words, I'm very afraid. It's also, I want to say, the longest chapter out of all of them. But it's also the one that I've seen by far, like, the most kind of like, holy shit, that was kind of like amazing from a lot of people. So, yeah, this one is by far the longest. So, that might be kind of annoying. Anyways, yeah, until next time, I've been Soup. Peace out, I guess. I don't fucking know.
I'm very afraid of what's going to happen next. I don't know what to do anymore. Please help me. Nobody's going to help me. Ah, fuck, I have to read it.
I hope you guys better be fucking happy about this, goddammit. See you next time.